George's Marvellous Medicine. Written by Roald Dahl. Illustrations by Corin Blake. Grandma. I am going shopping in the village, George's mother said to George on Saturday morning. So be a good boy and don't be a mischief. That was a silly thing to say to a small boy at any time. It immediately made him wonder what sort of mischief he might get up to. And don't forget to give Grandma her medicine at 11 o'clock, the mother said. Then out she went, closing the back door behind her. Grandma, who was dozing in her chair by the window, opened one wicked little eye and said, "Now you heard what your mother said, George. Don't forget my medicine." "No, Grandma," George said. I just try to behave yourself for once when she's away." "Yes, Grandma," George said. George was bored to tears. He didn't even have a brother or a sister. His father was a farmer, and the farm they lived on was miles away from anywhere, so there was never any children to play with. They were tiring of staring at pigs and hens and cows and sheep. He was especially tired of having to live in the same house that this glittering old ruin of a grandma. Looking after her all by himself, it was hardly the most exciting way to spend a Saturday morning. "You can make me a nice cup of tea for a start," said Grandma to George. "That would keep you out of mischief for a few minutes." "Yes, Grandma," George said. George couldn't help just liking Grandma. She was a selfish, grumpy old woman. She had a pale ground teeth and a small mirror up her like a dog's bottom. "How many sugar did you put in your tea, Grandma?" George asked her. "1 spoon, she said, "and no milk." Most grandmothers are lovely, kind, and helpful old ladies, but not this one. She spent all her day and every day sitting in her chair by the window, and was always complaining, grousing, and grouching, and grumbling, and whipping about something or another. Never once gave her on her best days, and she smiled. George said, "Where are you this morning, George? Or why did you have a game of snakes and ladders? How was school today?" She didn't seem to care about other people, only about herself. She was a miserable old grouch, and she went to the kitchen and made Grandma. George went to the kitchen and made Grandma a cup of tea with a tea bag. He put 1 spoon of sugar in it and no milk. He stirred the sugar well and carried it to the cup to the living room. Grandma sipped the tea. "It's not sweet enough," she said. "Put more sugar in it." George took the cup back to the kitchen and added another spoonful of sugar. He stirred it again and carried on carefully to Grandma. "Where's the saucer?" she said. "I want to have a cup without a saucer." George fetched a saucer and not a about a teaspoon, if you please. I will stir it for you, Grandma. I stir it well. I stir my own tea, thank you very much, she said. Fetch me a teaspoon. George fetched her a teaspoon. When George's mother or father about like this, it was only when she had him on her own begin treating him badly. You know what's the matter with you? Roald said, staring at George at the rim of the teacup with those bright, wicked little eyes. You're growing too fast. Boys who grow too fast because they become stupid and lazy. But I can't help it if I'm growing fast. Well, I can't help it if I'm growing fast, Grandma, George said. Of course you can, she snapped. Growing into a nasty, childish habit. But we have to go, Grandma. If we didn't go, we would never be grown-ups. Rubbish, boy, rubbish, she said. Look at me. Am I growing? Certainly not, but you did once, Grandma. Only very little, the old woman answered. I gave up growing because I exactly small and along with nasty childish stuff. Habits like laziness and mayonnaise and greed and sloppiness and untidiness. And stupidly, you haven't given up on all of those things, have you? I'm still a little boy, Grandma. You're 8 years old, she snorted. That's enough to know better. If you stopped growing soon, it would be too late. Too late for what, Grandma? It's ridiculous, she went on. You're nearly as tall as me already. George took a good look at Grandma. She was certainly a very tiny person. Her legs were so short, she had a footstool to put her feet on, and her head was only halfway up back of the armchair. Daddy says it's fine to be a man to be tall, George says. Don't listen to your daddy, Grandma said. Listen to me. But how can I stop myself growing? George asked her. Eat less chocolate, Grandma said. Does chocolate make you grow? It makes you go the wrong way, she snapped. Up instead of down. Grandma sipped some tea but never took her eyes from a little boy who stood Never grow up, she said. Always down. Yes, Grandma. And stop eating chocolate. Eat cabbage instead. Cabbage? Oh, no, I don't like cabbage, George said. Is that what you like or what? Or you don't like? Grandma snapped. It's good for you, that counts. From now on, you must eat cabbage 3 times a day. Mountains of cabbage. And if it's got caterpillars in it, so much better. George said. Caterpillars give you brains, the old woman said. Mummy washes them down in the sink, George said. Mummy's as stupid as you are, Grandma said. Cabbage doesn't taste of anything with only a few boiled caterpillars. Slugs too. Not slugs, Grandma cried out. I couldn't eat slugs. Have I seen a live slug on a piece of lettuce. Grandma said, I gobble it up as quick before it crawls away. Delicious. She sneezed her lips together tight so that their mouth could become a tiny wrinkled hole. Delicious, she said again. Worms and slugs and beetly bugs. You don't know what's good for you. You're joking, Grandma. I never joke, she said. Beetles are perhaps best of all. They go crunch. Grandma, that's beastly. Hag grinned, showing those pale brown teeth. Sometimes, if you're lucky, she said, get a beetle instead of a stick of celery. That's what I like. Grandma, how could you? You'd find all sorts of nice things in sticks of raw celery. But old woman went on. Sometimes it's earwigs. I don't want to hear about it, cried George. A big fat earwig is very tasty, Grandma said, licking her lips. But you put one of those in your mouth and there's a pair of sharp nippers on its back, and if it grabs your tongue with those, it never gets go. So you got to bite the earwig first, chop, chop, before it bites you. George started edging towards the door. He wanted to get as far away as possible from that filthy old woman. You're trying to get away from me, aren't you? She said, pointing a finger straight at George's face. You're trying to get away from Grandma. Little George stood behind the door, staring at the old hag in the chair. She stared back at him. Could it be, George wondered, that she was a witch? There was always tonight. He always thought witches were only in fairy tales, but now he wasn't so sure. Come closer to me, little boy, she said, beckoning to him with her horny finger. Come closer to me, and I'll tell you secrets. George didn't move. Grandma didn't move either. I know a great many secrets, she said, and suddenly she smiled. There's a thin, icy smile, kind of a snake might make just as before. It bites you. Come over here to Grandma, and she will whisper secrets to you. George took a step backwards, edging closer to the door. You must be frightened of your old Grandma, she said, smiling that icy smile. Girl took another step backwards. Some of us, she said. As for all of us, she was leaning forward in a chair and whispering with a throaty sort of voice. George had never heard her use before. Some of us, she said, have magic powers which can twist the creatures of this earth into wonderful shapes. A tingle of electricity flashed down the length of George's spine. He began to feel frightened. Some of us, the old woman went on, have fire in our tongues and sparks in our bellies and whistling in the lips of our fingers. Some of us, those secrets would make your hair straight up on end and your eyes would pop out of their sockets. George wanted to run away, but his feet seemed stuck to the floor. You know how to make your nails drop off and teeth grow out of your fingers instead. George began to tremble. It was her face which frightened him the most. Her frosty smile, the brilliant, unblinking eyes. You know how you wake up in the morning with a long tail coming out behind you. Grandma! He cried out. Stop! You all know secrets, my dear, about dark places where dark things to live and swarm, but to sliver all at each other and cheat each other. George made a dive for the door. It doesn't matter how far you run, she heard her saying. You will never get away. George ran to the kitchen, slamming the door behind him. The marvellous plan. George sat himself down at the table. In the kitchen, he was shaking a little. Oh, how he hated Grandma. He really hated that horrid old Richie woman. And all of a sudden, he had a tremendous urge to do something about her. Something whopping. Something extremely terrific. A real shocker. A sort of explosion. He wanted to blow away the witchy smell that hung around her in the next room. It may have only been 8 years old, but he was a brave little boy. He's ready to take this old woman on. I'm not going to be frightened by her, he said softly. But he was frightened, and that's why he suddenly wanted to play her away. Well, not quite away, but he did want to shake that old woman a bit. Very well, then. What could it be? Something whopping, terrific. Terrific exploding shocker for Grandma. He would have liked to put a firework banner under her chair, but he didn't have one. He would have liked to put a long green snake onto the back of her dress, but he didn't have a long green snake. He would have liked to put 6 big plank white rats under the floor with her and lock the door, but he didn't have 6 big black rats. Grandma's brown medicine standing on the sideboard. Rotten stuff, it seemed to be. 4 times a day, a large spoonful was shovelled into her mouth, and it didn't do her the slightest bit of good. She was always just as horrid after she had it been before. The whole point of medicine surely was to make her as a person better. If it didn't do that, that means it was quite useless. So ho, thought George suddenly. Aha! Ho hum! I know exactly what I'll do. I shall make her a new medicine. What is so strong, it will fierce and so fantastic, it will even cure her completely and blow off the top of her head. I'll make a magic medicine. A magic no doctor in the world has made before. George looked at the kitchen clock. It said 10:05. There was nearly an hour left before Grandma's last dose. It was due to 11. Here we go then, cried George, jumping up from his table. A magic medicine it shall be. So give me a bug and a jumping flea. Give me 2 snails and a lizard 3. Give me a slimy Lazarus from the sea. And give me a poisonous sting from a bumblebee, and a juice from a fruit from a jujube tree, and a powdered bone from a rotbat's knee, and 100 other things as well, each with a rather nasty smell. I'll serve them up and boil them long, a mixture tough a mixture strong. Then hi-ho, and down it goes. A big spoonful, hold your nose. Just gulp it down and have no fear. How do you like it, Grandma dear? Would you go pop? Would you explode? Would you go flying down the world? Would you go puff in a big puff of smoke? Start fizzing like a can of Coke? Who knows? Not I. Let's wait and see. I'm glad it's neither for you or me. Oh, Grandma, if you only knew. What have I got in store for you? George begins to make the medicine. George took an enormous spoon pan out of the cardboard and placed it on the kitchen table. George! Came a scold voice from the next room. What are you doing? Nothing, Grandma. Nothing, Grandma. He called out. You didn't need. I can't hear you just because you closed the door. You're rattling the saucepans. I'm just tidying the kitchen, Grandma. But there was silence. George had absolutely no doubts whatsoever have been doing to make his famous medicine. He wasn't going to fool the medicine, rather he'll put it into a little bit of that. Quite simply, he was going to put everything he could to find. There was no messing about, no heedless thing, no wonder or particular thing would knock that old girl sideways or not. That rule would be like this. Wherever he saw it was running or powdery or gooey, in it went. Nobody had ever made a medicine like that before. If it didn't actually cure Grandpa, but it would anyway cause some exciting results that would be worth watching. George decided to work away on around his various rooms in time to see what he had to offer. He would go to the bathroom, and there was always lots of funny things in the bathroom. So upstairs he went, carrying an enormous two-handed saucepan before him. In the bedroom, he gathered longingly at the famous and dreaded medicine cupboard, but he didn't go near it. That was the only thing inside the entire house was forbidden to touch. He had certain promises to his parents about this. He wasn't going to break them. There were things in there that he told him which could actually kill a person out through. He was going to give it to Grandma, a pretty fiery mouthful. He didn't really want a dead body on his hands, but George put the saucepan on the floor and he went to work. Number one was a bottle labelled golden. It was called Age's Hair Set. Hold 12 inches and away from the hair and spray lightly. He squirted a whole lot into the saucepan. He did enjoy squirting these aerosols. There was a bottle of perfume called Flowers or Turnips. They smelled of old cheese. In it went. And in two went a large round box of powder. It was called Pink Plaster. In there was a powder puff on top, and he threw it in the well for luck. He found a couple of lipsticks. He poured it the greasy red things and into the cases and added them to the mixture. The bedroom had nothing more to offer, so George carried the enormous saucepan downstairs again and trotted to the laundry room where the shelves were full of all kinds of household items. The first one he took there was a large box of super white automatic washing machines. Dirt, it said, well, disappear like magic. George didn't know whether Grandma was automatic or not, but he certainly that dirty old woman, so he wanted to have it all, tipping the whole box full. There was a big tin of Waxwell floor polish. He moved it, fliv, and messes from the floor, and left anything shiny bright. It said, gold. And George scooped the orange colour waxy stuff out and put it in a tin and plonked it into the pan. There was a round of cardboard label called flea powder for dogs. Keep well away from the dog's food, it said, because this powder, if eaten, it would make a dog explode. Good, said George, pouring it all into a saucepan. He found a box of celery seed on the shelf. Perhaps I'll make it to the old man's sink, and in it went. Next, George explored a box of shoe cleaning materials, polishes and tins with dusters. Well now, he thought, Grandma's medicine is brown, so I'll make my medicine be brown, or she'll smell like a rat. The way they coloured it was brown shoe polish, and a large tin Charles was a dark tan. Spelling, and he scooped it well with an old spoon and plopped it into the pan. He would stir it up later. On his way to the kitchen, George saw a bottle of Gwyn standing on the sideboard. Grandma was very fond of the Gwyn, and she was allowed to put a small nip of even, so now he would give her a treat or not. He would pour in a whole bottle, he did. Back in the kitchen, George poured the large saucepan on the table and went over to the cupboard and served it as later. The shelves was burning, and jars of every single sort. He followed it and emptied them one by one in the saucepan. A tin of curry powder, a tin of mustard powder, a bottle of extra hot chili sauce, a tin of black peppercorns, a bottle of horseradish sauce. There, he said aloud. That should do it. Jones! Come from a squeaky voice from the next room. What are you doing there? What are you up to? Nothing, Grandma. Absolutely nothing, he called back. Is it time for my medicine yet? No, Grandma. Not for about half an hour. Well, let's just say you don't forget it. I won't, Grandma, George answered. I promise I won't. This was the first part of the book. This book will be all together, written by Roald Dahl. And this is the first. This is. I hope you enjoy reading these 32 pages of the first part. All of these parts will be in together of a full audio book. Thank you for listening to this first part of the video. Okay, bye-bye.